Hello, welcome back. And today's broadcast, we're going to take a slightly different angle. I'm going to ask a question, and I hope that you all will provide some feedback. So, the question is, can you relate to what it feels like to be hated? So, what is hate? It's one of those intense feelings of dislike. It means someone has been thinking heavily and often about how much they dislike you. And can you relate to being a hater? Can you relate to being hated? Well, let's take a look at a story of a woman that God said was hated. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 29, verse 31. The backstory is there was a man named Jacob, and he worked for his his soon-to-be father-in-law, a man named Laban. And in the 7 year period that he worked, they had an agreement that he would be able to marry the daughter named Rachel. Well, it ended up that Laban was not an honest man because he honored his culture above his integrity, and he switched out his daughter for another one. Now, that's a whole nother story of how you could get switched out and not know who you've gotten. But anyway, he ended up with Leah. And on verse 31, it begins, and when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, it says it, hated. It says, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived, verse 32, and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now, therefore, my husband will love you. Can you imagine how Leah felt? Leah was hated. God said she was hated. And now she's thinking she's had this son named Reuben. Now perhaps her husband will love her. Then it goes on in verse 33, and she conceived again and bare a son, and said, because the Lord hath heard that I was hated. She's still talking about being hated now. This is her second child. He has therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon, which means hearing, because God was hearing her. Well, let's do the math. They were at least 9 months apart, so this is at least an 18-month period of feeling hated. Now, that's a long time to feel hated. Let's keep reading. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I've borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. Now, can you imagine being a woman that feels hated 3 sons later? That's 9 times 3 months going, and I'm sure the children were a little bit distant, more distant than just a 9 month period. So, on to verse 35. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she said something different this time. Now I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah and left bearing. I believe something happened after these first three of feeling hated for so long that Leah finally had an encounter with God. So this time she doesn't even speak about her husband hating her. She says, now I will praise the Lord. So I hope that we have an encounter with Leah. We have an encounter like Leah in the cases where we've been in that have made us feel hated. So on a feelings wheel, I can only imagine what she felt like. Could she have felt rejected, abandoned? Could she have felt hurt, devastated? See why I tagged this story with times when your head is held low? I'm certain that she felt unfavored compared to the other wife or the other woman. And I'm sure that there are a lot of you all out here who can relate to this story. If you have some feedback, I look forward to you providing it. So, my hope for you is that you come out of that place of feeling hated, whatever that feeling is, connected. And if you don't know what the feeling is, I'll give you a clue on how you can tell how you feel. So, you ask yourself, how did you feel? Meaning, what emotion was it that you had when this hate was something that you encountered. So if you have any feedback for me, you let me know. And then you let me know and I'll give you some feedback. So anyway, the topic today is, can you relate to being a hater? Can you relate to being hated? Keep me posted.